states that every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. Ron will now pass the basket. This is a weekly STEP meeting. Our format is as follows. A speaker is asked to talk for 25 to 30 minutes on the STEP of that week, followed by discussion or questions until 7. You can find these weekly meetings on our YouTube page, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown. Don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe and share. That brings us to the speaker portion of the meeting on this day. What's today? 24th, July 24th, 2023 in Doylestown, PA at the Monday night 6 p.m. Stay Alive Literature and Step Group at St. Paul's Lutheran Church. Tonight's speaker is Liz, and she will be sharing her experience on Step 2. Please help me welcome Liz.
Hi, I'm Liz. I'm an alcoholic. If you can't hear me, just like raise your hand or something. I'm a little under the weather and I can't even hear myself. So if I need to speak louder, like somebody tell me. But yeah, Dave asked me to speak on Saturday night, and I kind of thought about it all day, and I'm like, you know, steps 1, 2, and 3. I've been sober since October 21st of 2014, and steps 1, 2, and 3 are just, you know, something that I generally practice every day, you know? But I thought it was funny that I was coming here to speak on Step 2 tonight because I had myself in such a tailspin mentally over the weekend that I literally forgot what the steps were. So Saturday night I had a miscommunication with someone. We talked it out. It was over in 5 minutes. But my alcoholic brain likes to, you know, continue the conversation on its own. And I had, you know, I went home, it was like 2 a.m, and I'm like, okay, it's already too late. I'm not gonna pray, I'm not gonna meditate. I'm just gonna go to bed. I'll wake up tomorrow, everything will be great. Woke up the next day, you know, the first half a second that my eyes are open, everything is great. And then my alcoholic brain goes back to replaying exactly what happened the night before. And now I'm going deeper into my own rabbit hole of thoughts, and I have myself thinking that, you know, and this had nothing to do with the miscommunication that started all of this, but, you know, I am a horrible mother, you know, I'm back in school, why am I doing that? You know, you're doesn't matter what you're going for, you're not going to be able to do that. You know, I'm a piece of shit, like, sorry, pardon my language, but that's where my brain takes me, you know. So my first thought is to call my best friend who's in AA. And, you know, we talk through it. I tell her what's going on, what thoughts are going on in my head, get off the phone, and I feel marginally better, but I'm still going through all the racing thoughts. So, you know, next I call the boyfriend. He's also in AA, so he kind of understands, you know, we're talking through it, and get off the phone, and I'm feeling, you know, marginally better, but I still got the racing thoughts. And then I remembered that I had to come and speak here today. And I'm like, come on, like, I hate speaking. And I'm like, I gotta speak on the second step. What are the steps? I couldn't even remember what the steps were. And I'm Googling. I've been sober 8.5 years. I've got myself in such a rabbit hole. I don't remember the steps. I'm Googling, what is step 2? Step 1, I'm powerless over alcohol. My life has become unmanageable. My life is unmanageable, and I have learned through my own, you know, experimenting. My life is unmanageable with or without alcohol. Came to believe a power greater than myself can restore me to sanity. I'm having insane thoughts right now. My mind is racing. I can't stop it. Have I taken any of this to God? Because I have, for the past 8.5 years, on a daily basis, came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. And was I relying on my higher power at all in those past 24 hours? No. I did not pray. I did not meditate. I did not call a friend to check up on how they were doing to get out of myself and care about someone else. I made phone calls so people could listen to what was going on with me, but I didn't take anything to my higher power. And it was just funny that I got asked to, you know, speak on this step because I had to literally Google it to remind myself, like, hey, Doesn't matter how much time you have. Sometimes I have a strange mental blank spot with my own program. You know, they talk about it in reference to picking up a drink. But I have a mental blank spot when it comes to my own program sometime, where it doesn't matter how long I've been practicing this. Sometimes I just forget what I need to do on a daily basis. I have a sponsor. She knows she's my sponsor. I have a home group, is the Jaywalkers group. It's a big book study in Quakertown. We meet on Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock. And my sobriety date's October 21st of 2014. And I like when speakers kind of start talking about their childhood, because I felt very different from the earliest memories that I have, where, you know, I remember being out at recess and I would watch kids just playing together freely. And I'm like just so awkward and just so self-conscious already that I'm like, how are they doing this? Like, how are you just out there making friends? I'm so terrified of being judged already from like that age, that like that fear was already stopping me. I won't talk about it too much, but it manifested itself into my first mental obsession, which was an eating disorder. And it very much relates to alcoholism and how it kind of takes over your mind, and it is an obsession. I knew those thoughts were abnormal already at 5 and 6 years old. But I didn't seek help for that at that time, and I, indulged in those disordered habits, disordered thinking. And, I had a great home, a great loving home. I had two parents that, had a beautiful marriage. My dad was an alcoholic, and growing up, I didn't see the dysfunction in that, because if I had to put a label on it, I would tell you my dad was a highly functioning alcoholic. Didn't miss a day of work, never called out sick. Don't know that I ever really saw him drunk, just saw him happier, when he was deep in the drink. But there was the dysfunction where, I had to watch my P's and Q's because I didn't want to piss Dad off. Dad would sleep till noon on the weekends, and that was just normal. And you didn't talk to him for the first hour or two that he was up because he needed to get a couple drinks in him. He was not abusive in any way, but I saw that dysfunction and just kind of accepted it for what it was. I just thought that was normal. I went through school. I was a great student, a good kid, never got into trouble. And I knew that if I would get into trouble or my grades dropped, Dad would have something to say about it. So I, just did the good kid thing. I didn't rebel in any kind of way. But my dad got sick when I was 15. And at this point, the only thing that I could say was abnormal about me or my thinking was in relation to the eating disorder and probably the self-conscious feelings and all that. But my dad got really sick, and he went to the doctor, and they found out he had pneumonia. And through that, they found out he had stage 4 lung cancer, and he passed away within 3 months. That doesn't make me an alcoholic, but I think that the combination of what age I was at, and having absolutely no tools in any kind of a spiritual toolkit to deal with the death of my father, the first thing I did was, find friends that would accept me in the trauma that I was dealing with, and those friends just happened to be experimenting with drugs and alcohol at that time. And that's what I fell into. And I didn't have a white light moment or an I have arrived moment, but I know that all of the thoughts that had consumed me for so long, on top of the thoughts of just that the grieving process gives you, I know drugs and alcohol shut that off real quick. And I really liked that. I liked being able to not feel so awkward in my own skin and be able to socialize with people my age and forget about all the things that I was going through. I continued dabbling in the drugs and alcohol. I graduated high school, went into college, community college, and got a job in the restaurant business. And, if anybody's worked in the restaurant business, you know that drugs and alcohol are very prevalent. And, just got into some harder and harder things. And at that point, I was going down a really slippery slope. The arrests had started, losing jobs had started, and just making poor choices. The friends that I had were determined by the drugs and alcohol, the amount of drugs and alcohol you were consuming. That's how I chose my boyfriends. If they were a little bit worse than I was, then that's good. I don't have to look at myself. I can just look at you because you're the problem, and we're going to fix you together. And we're not going to worry about what's going on with me. And all of that led to a warrant being put out for my arrest a couple years later. I was 20 at this point, and I was just really, really broken, and I didn't have too many more moves to make. I didn't have a license, barely had a place to live. And my mom asked me one day if I would turn myself in, and I just said yes. I'm glossing over a whole lot of, trauma and all the other stuff, but, that's really what it came down to. My mom asked me, and I was just broken enough in that moment to say, yes, I will turn myself in for this warrant. I also didn't think that turning myself in meant I was going to go to jail. I just thought I would say, hey, I'm here, I'm still good, I'm still alive, and I was going to leave and go home, and that wasn't the case. I ended up going to jail for 3 months. It wasn't a long time, but it was long enough that I got my first taste of what being sober and not dependent physically, mentally, on a daily drink or drug, felt like. I hadn't felt that in years, and I actually really liked it. I actually kind of liked the person that I was. I didn't like thinking about my past and all the things that I had done to get to that point, all the lies, the cheating, the stealing. None of that felt good, but who I was in that moment, that did feel right. And they brought AA meetings into the jail, and that was kind of my first taste of what an AA meeting looked like. I didn't really hear a whole lot about the steps, and that's probably because of where I was at. I know if I go into a rehab now, I don't necessarily bring in so much about God because you want to relate and meet people at where they're at. But I was watching someone week in and week out bring in a message that, hey, I was in the exact same spot that you're in right now, and it is possible to recover. So I got out of jail, and a friend of mine who was had about a month more than I did, we started going to meetings together. And I actually got my first sponsor at a meeting up here in Doylestown. And right away, she was like, we're going to go through the steps. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I hear about the 12 steps. I've read them on the wall. I don't really know what any of it means. And she said her only job was to put my hand into the hand of God. And I was like, okay, that's kind of a scary word. I was 20 years old when I got sober, and up until that point, the only time that I heard the word God was in relation to religion. And I had been to church a couple times in my life. I had expressed interest in, religion at some points, but I just didn't know how the God thing was really going to fare. I didn't know anything about spirituality. It had to be broken down to me that when you come into AA, this isn't a religion. You guys don't tell me what God I need to believe in. I am free to believe as long as I believe that there is something greater than me. I'm free to have that look however I want. And when it was broken down to me like that, I was like, wow, that's something I can accept. Nobody had ever broken down a higher power, God, or the universe, whatever you want to call it, to me in that way. And that I could vibe with. And by that point, step one, admitting I was powerless over alcohol and that my life was unmanageable, I knew that was true. It took a while into sobriety to learn that my life is unmanageable with or without a drink. Even sober, my life is unmanageable. But at that point, I knew with alcohol in my life, it was unmanageable. So that brought us to step two, came to believe a power greater than yourself could restore you to sanity. And at the point of hitting step 2, I didn't necessarily know that if it would work for me, but I watched it, day in, day out, coming to meetings. I watched it in all of you. You sat there and told stories that were much similar to mine, and about how you got into these rooms and how you had recovered, and working a program in the 12 steps. And, you had to go from 1 to step 2, then on to step 3. And if you all believed that a power greater than yourself could restore you to sanity, then maybe it would work for me, because none of my ideas and ways had worked before. None of what my head thought would keep me sober managed to do that. And that was really my experience with step 2. And then step 3, making the decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. That was freeing. I didn't have to try and manage my life anymore. As long as I believed, as it says in step 2, that something could bring me back to sanity, it didn't have to be me. And that was awesome. So I continued to work the steps with a sponsor who was very much in the big book and who got me through the steps very quickly. And I was very thankful for that, because with me at least, there was a very short window of opportunity that I was really going to be able to hear a message and be able to have the willingness to work the steps. And I needed that information and that solution very quickly. And life got really good. Those 9th step promises started to come true, and then things outside of those promises even started to happen. I got engaged, I got married, owned a restaurant, got pregnant, have a baby girl. And all those things were, things from this program. But during that time, I want to say around maybe, year 3 or 4 of being sober, things had gotten really good. And those things were what was going to keep me sober. Not necessarily the program and the 12 steps, the things that actually got me sober. But my mind was so fixated on all the other things, all the good things that this program had given me, and I really took a step back from this program. And that's when I found out how unmanageable my life was, when I wasn't inviting God into the picture, when I wasn't working with others, when I wasn't utilizing a sponsor. I still had a sponsor by name, but I wasn't making a phone call to her. I knew what was best. And it took a lot of pain to, find out that my life is unmanageable sober. And I need to practice 1, 2, and 3 every single day and help others and clean house. So I ended up getting a divorce. I ended up losing the restaurant that, I had worked so hard for years. And then I was, raising my baby girl that I wanted so desperately, but always believed I would raise a child in a 2-parent home. Now I'm raising her by myself. And of course her dad is in the picture too. I'm not taking all the credit here or anything, but I am raising her alone instead of together. And it took all that pain to realize I can't manage and control myself. I can't manage and control anybody else. I can't manage and control anything on the outside world. But what I can practice every day is 1, 2, and 3. And I had to come back into this program as a newcomer. I didn't lose my sobriety. I still had my time. But I had to come back in here with the open mind that I know nothing. I'm never going to know everything, and maybe I need to go back to the basics, get a sponsor that I will actually utilize, and find out that my way isn't always the best way. I learned lessons the hard way, and that was the only way I was going to learn this, and that it was going to stick. And this time around, I was just telling Dave, speaking never gets easier for me. But today I have the willingness. When you asked me to speak, I didn't, question it. It's like, yes, I have to show up for AA because AA has showed up for me all of these years. I have to work with others, little God moment, but my, sponsee asked me if I was going to one particular meeting that I'm usually at tonight. And I said, no, I'm coming here to speak in like 45 minutes. Do you want me to pick you up? And she's like, yeah, please. And then got to have, the whole car ride up here, having a conversation with her instead of another conversation in my own head, And it's just little things like that that are miracles of the program today, and miracles of coming to believe that a power greater than myself can restore me to sanity. So that's all I got. Thank you.
All right, so please limit your sharing to 3 minutes. Please keep your shares related to the step. If you feel like drinking or if you have had a drink today, please see me or speak to someone after the meeting. We ask that you please refrain from the use of profanity. We are in a church and on a spiritual journey. With that, I'll open it up.